back to Sammon's Pizzeria, the podcast that definitely wasn't all aboard the Gerald Taylor hype train, but may need a lift home from Dundee Station. Joining me tonight in a stellar cast of podcasters to help me through the Scottish Premiership weekend. First, much like most SPFL teams this season making their debut, we've got Andy. Andy, how are you doing? And welcome aboard. First time on the pod.
Thank you. I'm good. Not bad. Yourself?
I'm very, very well, my friend. Next, fresh back from her loan deal with the guys at NARP, we've got Jenna. Jenna, how's things going?
Not bad.
Moving on, fresh from watching his side get battered at Rugby Park, unfortunately, we've got Paul. Paul, how you doing?
I've been better, Stu. How's yourself?
Yeah, not bad. I can imagine, mate. I can imagine. And finally, fresh or maybe not so fresh from an evening of what I imagine was getting battered after a wonderful Dundee performance is Ethan from Dens Park Choir. Ethan, how's it going?
Very good. I don't feel as legless, but I'm still seeing stars.
I'd expect no less. So we'll start straight into the games. We'll sort of go through them in order. And first, we've got Rangers and Motherwell, which is the perfect start because we've got a Rangers fan and we've got a Motherwell fan, so we can go over this one. Rangers 2, Motherwell 1, so Rangers pick up their first 3 points of the season. I'll start with Andy on this one. Andy, 2-1, fast start in the first half, a very lacklustre second half. What's your sort of overall thoughts of the game? We will break it down a little bit, but what's your sort of overall thoughts at the start of that?
Started well. Some good chances. Started kind of playing the ball quicker than I was expecting, especially after the performance last Saturday against Hearts. It was a lot better than I was expecting. It seemed a lot sharper as well, which I was surprised about, especially after the Champions League game through the week. But I think we could be kicking ourselves to not be scoring more if it wasn't for Scott Wright missing pretty much for 2 yards out an open goal, which maybe would have made it a bit more comfortable for us. And then in the second half, we just either tiredness killed us or just losing grip of the game. As soon as we make changes, we've not got the quality to back up the first team players. The first team players aren't great themselves, to be fair. Never mind the players coming off the bench that have got to replace them. So as soon as we take a couple of the quality at the starting 11, it's hard to see how we can control a game, and it showed it pretty much on Saturday.
Yeah, Jenna, I mean, from what Andy's saying there as well, I know you personally, with the injury crisis going on at Motherwell, it was a game you sort of just maybe wanted to get past and get out the other side and focus on games ahead. A weird one in that I think Kettlewell summed it up, that Rangers started the first half, they were sharp, they looked very good attacking, very slick. But come full time, you're maybe disappointed not to get a point out of that.
Yeah, I mean, we did have some good chances throughout the second half. We kind of grew into things more. To be honest, I take games against both sides of the Glasgow side just a training match, especially when it's not at home. I try just to get them over and done with as quick as possible, not to look too much into it. Unless we do a draw, then we're champions of Scotland, obviously. But other than that, it's just one you just need to take on the chin and move on, to be honest. It was a game I was dreading, not just because of the potential result, just because of injury. The fact that Australian boy we've signed had to get taken off before the first half was finished. I think that's up to 9 potential injuries, I think we're at now, maybe 10. And I don't know what we're doing in training. I don't know if he thinks that we're going to enter into the Hunger Games, never mind the League Cup next week against Kilmarnock or what, but he needs to get it sorted, because at this point, we've been having an injury crisis for what feels about 3 years. Because the same thing happened last season, the season before. It's not completely Kettlewell's fault, because this has been a long-term thing with us, but I think our training methods do need to get looked into, because it can't be a coincidence we have that many players out injured at once.
No, I think it's something you spoke about at Rangers similarly as well when you're talking about injury crisis and the medical team at Rangers. And it's certainly in terms of last season and even this season, obviously Oscar Cortez signed. He's injured again for sort of 4 to 5 weeks. Is it just a problem we're having in Scotland, or is it just a Rangers Motherwell exclusive issue. You know, we can't even blame the plastic pitches because these are ones happening on the grass pitches at the moment.
We definitely seem to have jinxed ourselves somehow. I even seen Jose Cordoba was injured for making his debut for Norwich at the weekend, so you don't even need to join us to get affected by your jinx. But it's talking about even last season with Danilo, spends 6 million on a striker to come in, plays a few games, gets his head caved in, manages to recover, and then does his ligaments. Then so far he's played a couple pre-season games, not had a minute in the league at all. But I'm hoping that the medical side might be a bit better. Gone by everything that Clement said, nothing could be changed last season. Had to be wait until they started back this season. So we can only hope that massive lines of injuries is behind us. But I don't expect much to come from it because it's so far already. Raskin injured for weeks in a pre-season friendly. Cortez out for weeks again. So it's start as you mean to go on as usual.
Yeah, and just on the game itself, then Andy, obviously Rangers do go ahead. Cyril Dessers, the much maligned Cyril Dessers, the guy that can sort of on one side can do no wrong and the other side he can do no right. There's a real 50-50 sort of argument over Cyril Dessers. He does well, you know. I think the one thing you can say about Cyril Dessers is his movement is fantastic. He's always in very good positions. He's always getting chances. What he does with those chances is another question. But Rangers get 1-0 up, and against the team at Hampden, obviously, this occasion, but the big wide open pitches, the crowd behind you, getting that first goal is so key. Are you confident at that point that it's going to be not a walk in the park, but the job is going to be done pretty soon?
I was kind of expecting it. Before the game, I was thinking I'll take any 3 points, but to score early on, have the injury crisis that Motherwell have got, thinking scored early, we can build on this now. And while we played well, again, there's just no cutting edge to the team. And when we finally get into the box or create something that falls to Dessers, and he needs about 10 chances to hit the back of the net. And as you say, people love to hate him. Like, he's clearly a really nice guy, but he's possibly one of the most infuriating players I've ever seen play for Rangers. As you say, his movement's good. Everything apart from his finishing is probably really good. Like, for SPL standards anyway, he can do a job here. But his incessant need to do a cutback or take an extra touch or do something rather than just hit the ball towards the goal and score is just beyond me. Because if he'd done that, he'd have probably been on 30 plus goals last season rather than just on the 20 odd.
Yeah, no, I'm going to sort of bring some of the other guys in because they're waiting so patiently, and I know they've sort of analysed the other games a lot more for us. So we'll start with Paul just on Cyril Dessers then. Do you think Cyril Dessers is good enough for if Rangers improve and they build a squad that is capable of chasing Celtic this season, which, let's be honest, it's probably not going to be this season, but if they did all that hypothetically, is Cyril Dessers enough for you as a number 9 to fire Rangers to a title if everything else falls in place?
I think, consistently, as your guys say, you watch him every week, but he's got a lot to add to his game, obviously, but just going on another side of his game, like the other night against Kiev, when he scored in the last minute, Rangers fans thought he was the best striker since Ali McCoist. So I think he's got that to his game, and as you say, he's got the movement. He gets us into the areas to convert the chances, which to me is quite important for a centre forward. But I think he does need a bit of work with his finishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of same question to yourself then, Ethan. I mean, I don't know how much you saw the Dynamo Kiev game that Paul mentioned there, but not just the fact that he gets into the right position and scores in the Kiev game, but the flick on is, in my opinion, it's almost world class. Like he's under pressure, the ball's dinked into him, and it sort of flicks it into Tom Lawrence, and then Rangers are off, and obviously he goes and finishes the chance. You see that side of Cyril Dess's, and then you'll see a different side of Cyril Dess's where he'll miss a sitter, he'll miss an open goal, he'll take too many touches. Again, sort of same question to you: do you think he's good enough for where Rangers want to be?
I don't think he's the problem, to be fair. I think when you look at a striker that scores 20, 25 goals in a season, that always reads well on paper. And the issues that seem apparent with him, they feel like, to me, that can be coached out of him. You can improve him in that regard if it's down to his decision making. I seem to recall, I want to say the Rangers played, was it Real Sociedad last season, and he was bullying the defenders on the park. You just mentioned the Dinamo Kiev game as well. He seems to have an aspect to his game where he can turn it on against a high level of opposition. So I get the feeling he's not a problem. I think he can improve. Is he enough for a team that wants to win the title? Probably not. You maybe need a bit more around him. But again, that's not unheard of. That, you know, sometimes you need striking partnerships rather than that lone number 9. So like I said, I feel he's a good player in his own right. He could get better, and like I say, it's not a problem. I don't think he is the problem. I think he can improve, and if you get someone to play alongside him that can complement him well, that can also improve a player's game as well. By the way, if they have a player that complements them, a player that they can link up well with, that's very much the viewpoint I've got on Dessers.
Yeah, no, I think that's more than fair enough. And Andy, I'll drop back to you just before we bring Jenna back in as well. It does go 1-1. A sort of ball from the keeper picks out the player pretty well, I think, in the middle of the pitch, goes out wide, and seemingly from no real danger, very, very far out of goal, this sort of hopeful cross. Suter tries to get his head on it. I think he does get a little bit of his head on it. It hits Newside and Robin Propper's foot, and it bobbles into the bottom corner, and it's 1-1, and Rangers' defensive woes continue.
It's pretty much just everything the fans have seen since the first game of pre-season. Ball straight into midfield, cuts right through us, from midfield into the opponent's attack, cuts right through us again and score. We seem to be clueless about defending against this, especially. There was a video Motherwell put up on Twitter earlier of the goal from a point of view behind the goal from the Rangers goal end, and you've seen the ball coming right out into midfield, not one single player even bothering to try and press him. Ball gets taken in well for the Motherwell midfielder, then passed out to the left winger. I can't remember who it was for Motherwell. And that whole time, you do not see James Tavernier in the shot whatsoever, getting anywhere near close enough to close him down, which has just been symptomatic of him the last few months of the season last year, and the way he started this year. It's like he just strolls it as if there's no trouble here. Then, as you say, it's from nowhere. There's no danger at all, but due to the fact that there's no pressure on him, he can put in a decent ball. John Suter flings his head at it and gets the slightest wee touch, which probably puts Propper into a mixed mind of what he should do, and it just comes at him too fast and scores some goal for Motherwell. But again, Propper's probably too deep there as well, which is probably a case of brand new partnership, not knowing where he should be in relation to the other players. But this came from more than just a defensive partnership that's just getting to know each other. The same old problems for last season continuing on into this.
Yeah, it's fair enough. And Jenna, I mean, I don't think you're worried too much about how that goal comes about. I mean, just before that, I actually did think that Motherwell started the game okay as well. I thought Lennon Miller was quite lively in the start. Rangers obviously get that goal and Motherwell go on the back foot. But do you think this is something that maybe other teams are targeting, that not necessarily they're whipping balls in the box and hoping for OGs, but the thought that any ball in between the centre-backs, especially after the Kiev with the long balls over the top, anything that goes between centre-backs, whether it's a new centre-back or an old, as long as one of those legacy players are there for Rangers, there's always a chance that there's going to cause problems as long as you put the ball in the danger area.
I mean, definitely, it's not probably the most smartest way of play, to be honest, just because there's that many variables that can go wrong if you try relying on OGs, things like that, to try to get you ahead of even try and equalise. I wouldn't encourage it. I hope it's not something that we try and do next time we play either of the Glasgow sides, to be honest. But I mean, worked in our favour this time. I'm not mad at it. Felt quite sorry for the young boy when I found out it was his first time actually getting a shot at the start 11. So yeah, what a way to make your debut, I suppose. Score a goal just for the ranked side and then the ranked part of the net, but I suppose it's just while he hangs in it. Did have to laugh at the fact his name was proper, because when I said, oh no, it was a proper OG, it sounds as if I'm saying something else, but
yeah, and just staying with you, obviously Rangers do get the lead back. It's through Vaclav Černý, who gets his first goal for the club. I mean, you could argue it's good movement from Černý. He receives the ball and it's a wonderful finish. How disappointed were you with the defending there? Because I'm not sure if it was Dan Casey or the left back, but they all seem to be at 6s and 7s, and I mean, a sort of back 3/back 5. Černý picks up the ball and he is in acres of space.
no, definitely. It's not our best performance. Again, injuries don't help with that. We've got quite a few of our defender choices out at the moment. Same with our midfield as well. It's not been great for us, but to be honest, you can't rely on that excuse forever. The defenders, they should have picked up the slack with that one. They didn't. I know, obviously, the ball went in and that, but Oxford did make some really good saves throughout the game. If your defenders are going to pull their weight, you need to rely on your keeper. I thought he did brilliantly. Watching the highlights from the game, he had some absolute world-day saves. At least we know if our defenders are kind of not performing, at least we know we've got a keeper now that isn't afraid to try and make that last-minute save, whereas a certain previous keeper probably would not have tried it to even save that ball, to be honest.
No, maybe not. And Andy, final sort of point then on the Rangers game before we move on, because the second half was pretty much a non-event, I'd say. There was one moment sort of towards the end. I think it might have been Zach Robinson, who Ethan was quite hopeful of. I think getting the first team football at Motherwell. Jenny, you've not been too delighted with how he started, but I think he does everything right at the end, and Jack Butland, as he's done so often last season for Rangers, comes up absolutely huge again.
It's the way Jack Butland started the season. I'm actually surprised he saved it, to be honest, because he's been a bit ropey in pre-season, is putting it lightly. But towards the end of the second half, Motherwell started to get a lot more chances, and possibly due to the fact that Proper went off. I think when he went off, we lost a lot of composure in the defence, and John Souttar seemed to look like he'd never seen a football before in times in that game. So to get away with the 3 points towards the end there, I was actually quite glad, because Motherwell are usually quite good at getting a wee last-minute goal against us.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the Motherwell next up for them is Kilmarnock. Paul's very own Kilmarnock in the Scottish League Cup. Paul, we're going to come to the Kilmarnock game, but how are you feeling? Motherwell have obviously gone away, and I mean, in the end, run Rangers pretty close. How are you sort of feeling going into that League Cup tie with the way Kilmarnock are playing?
I'm a bit apprehensive, as to be said. I'm just hoping they can pull a performance out of somewhere, but the way we've been playing recently, I think Motherwell are looking good for a win there.
Well, there we go. You've got it from the horse's mouth right there. So that was that game. Moving on, we've got Ross County 1, Dundee United 1. I did try to get our resident Ross County fan on for this, but he was busy, so that's unfortunate, because he is absolutely in love already with Ronan Hale, who looks to be, so far, a decent replacement for Simon Murray, although I don't think it'll ever replace his love for Simon Murray. Jenna, you sort of caught up on this one a little bit. Dundee United seemed to really struggle in the first half. They did have a really, really big chance early on. I can't remember who it was pulled back to, but he slices the ball over from pretty much an open goal. And I think that was Dundee United's maybe only shot on goal in the first half. What did you sort of make of this game? Was it sort of two teams huffing and puffing?
To be honest, watching it, Ross County did seem to be the better side for majority of the game, which I was quite surprised at. Don't get me wrong, Dundee United, the second half kind of came into a bit more, well, I'm assuming it was the second half anyway based on the highlights. But to be honest, overall, it was just kind of one of those games where you're watching and just going, right, just someone just do something, please, just anything. Even a sending off or something, try and spice up a bit, make it a bit more entertaining. I mean, there was a couple of good attempts at goal from both teams, to be honest. They got lucky that the penalty was saved as well. But that equaliser at the very end of the game, that was an absolute beauty of a goal.
Yes, and I'm going to bring Ethan in here because obviously your very own team is the one that's acquired Simon Murray, and therefore Ross County did have to replace him. Ronan Hale is you can't argue with his goal record in Ireland. Obviously, it is a step up, you'd have to say, coming to Scotland, but he certainly started very well. And I know the Ross County fans are singing his praises, not just for the goal, but just for everything else he's done well. I think the only question I'd have is, are you surprised when you've got someone like that with the touch and the goal scoring prowess that he's got, that Eamon Brophy took their penalty?
I'm a bit surprised by that, to be fair. From what I caught of Ross County last season, when just after Derek Adams left and Don Killie took charge, I thought they looked at their best when Brophy was in the team alongside Murray and White as a front three. There's something really positive about that, and the way that Murray and Brophy linked up together. And you're right, Ronan Hale, excellent goal scoring record. As my brother would say, the goal doesn't change size. So when you have that knack, that ability to naturally finish so well, it's other aspects to your game that you have to polish on, that you probably should be polishing on anyway, no matter what league you're in. You're always looking to try and get the better of defenders, movement wise, physically wise, etc. And yeah, a massive let off, because it isn't particularly a great penalty from Brophy. You've got to give the keeper credit though at the same time, because for him it's a complete roll the dice on which way to go. So all the credit to Jack Walton, because I believe he's the one that gave away the penalty as well. So
Yes.
He's completely made amends, and he appeared to actually have quite a good game. Ross County had a fair number of chances, and I think I'm correct in saying, you're right, he only had the two shots all game, one of them being the goal, and the other one being the absolute sitter that they missed in the first minute through Miller Thompson.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're a newly promoted side as well, there tends to be an adjustment period into the league, so I'm not overly surprised that Ross County perhaps see to dominate a bit more of the game. But listen, as you say, it's the first few games for a newly promoted side. They could quickly grow into their groove sooner than later.
Yeah, and Andy, I mean, you obviously caught the highlights on this one. Dundee United, it's a weird one to judge because we are the second game into the season, so it is hard to really analyse how Dundee United are going to be for the season. They certainly played well in parts, I think, in the Dundee derby, although I said at the time, I think both goals came at a time where I thought Dundee were just starting to take control of that game, and that sort of set it set Dundee back, and it allowed Dundee United a lot more freedom at the time. What do you make of this Dundee United? There is quality. They've clearly gone out, the Trapanovskis and Babunskis of the world. They've gone out. They've got some real good quality in there. But like Ethan said, adjusting back to the top flight, it's a lot of new players to bring in, and Ross County aside, of course, are going to be touted for relegation pretty much most seasons. But it did look like a tie where Dundee United were they got the goal, of course, but they were maybe happy to get away with a point there.
Ross County definitely had the better of that match today. It possibly could have changed if Miller Thompson didn't fire that over the bar for 2 yards out in the first few minutes. Might have changed the complete course of the game, but Dingwall's a hard place to go to, especially a newly promoted team. As you say, they've got a lot of new players that they're having to gel together, and two shots on target up there is possibly not as good as they were expecting. They played well in the Championship. Coming up, they probably thought, we've got a good chance, especially against Ross County. As you said, they're a relegation favourite. So they might have thought they would have a good chance up there, but it's maybe just an off day for them, to be honest, because they have got some good quality players, but as you say, adjusting to the new league, new players coming in. But to be honest, this might get me a bit of hate, but under Jim Gooden, I don't think a lot's going to happen for them.
Well, I'm sure Ethan will be delighted to hear that. We will move on then, because as I say, it was one where we were struggling to get the extended highlights. It's one of the downsides of doing this on a Sunday evening. So we're going to plan that a little bit better to hopefully get a bit more analysed an analysis on each game, but we can move on to one where we have got that analysis on the game, which is, for me, the game of the weekend. Dundee 3, Hearts 1. I think it's fair to say a shock result, which not many were expecting. Ethan, we will break it down. What were your sort of thoughts going into the game, and just sort of give us a rundown of when it started? When did the confidence start building? Was it the first goal, or did you just start seeing it from the word go?
Well, going into it, I remember thinking, I think I said it last week, that I wasn't actually particularly confident playing Hearts. I had a feeling they were one of the last teams I'd want to play at this moment in time, because I actually felt like there's a lot of positivity about them. From the word go, I think it was it started off maybe not particularly cagey, but both teams kind of going for it, but also somewhat conservative. A lot of passing around the back, just waiting to pick the lock, who's going to blink first. And I would have said the confidence bell probably around about the time that the first goal would be probably bang on, because it came through that Xander Clark mistake. Very similar to a mistake he made against us last season in a game where we beat them 1-0. He's given the ball straight to Luke McCowan, found Scott Tiffany, and then Tiffany's just done the rest, taking his time and slotted it through that near post. I think from that point on, I think we're very much established being on the front foot. And that's exactly the way we want to see Dundee play when it comes to home games, just having a go at teams, not being afraid. It was brave passes, first time passes, try and get bums off seats, get the crowd excited, get them on your back. But really, we felt the game was just about done come half time. It was complete calamity at the back. And it really kind of stems from, I think, a really interesting talking point was the boy Taylor. Is it Gerald Taylor? The right back. He had taken out Scott Tiffany, and I believe the pundits were all kind of unanimously agreeing that it should have been a red card. And in my opinion, it probably was. It was reckless. He's taken him out, nothing on the ball. It's more for me. It's the speed of the challenge. If he's a bit more in control, then I could settle for a yellow. And he got quite lucky in that regard, but obviously what goes around comes around, because he's the one that stuck it in the back of the net for our second goal. So I can't really get too annoyed about that anymore. And I think it was only maybe 2 minutes later that we've won a penalty. It was just a complete loss of head at Hearts across the back line. And we knew, I think, there were going to be changes in that second half, and the changes were very positive, at least in regards to the performance. Yandanda and particularly Malachi Boateng coming on. I don't think Hearts fans will probably appreciate hearing it now, because they'll be really disappointed that they're 2 games in yet to win. But when watching Boateng there, I just said to the Hearts commentator sitting across from me, I said, when he starts games week in, week out, he might prove to be the signing of the summer. I thought he was very good for Hearts. And just the same way that with us with Mo Silla, that defensive midfield role, Boateng and Silla, time and time again, having to act as the last man. You take those 2 out of the game and run for a much more higher goal scoring affair. But no, I'm absolutely delighted with how Dundee performed. I felt, to a man, we were excellent. Spoilt for choice in regards for who we want to pick for man of the match. I said on DTV that I'd given it to Mo Silla. In hindsight, I probably regret saying that. I think it was maybe Scott Tiffany's best game for Dundee.
Wow, high praise indeed. I mean, I was going to touch on the Gerald Taylor red card, or lack of red card. It's something that you did say last week, that you can accept yellows in these situations as long as you're getting consistency. And I guess to a degree we're getting consistency. Obviously, Dave McCracken gets the yellow card last week. Gerald Taylor gets the yellow card this week. It did look a bit naughty. It didn't really look like he even had eyes on the ball, Gerald Taylor, this week when he goes into it. And I think, was it your own account put up a similar challenge from last season that the Dundee boy gets sent off for as well?
Yeah, Josh Mulligan.
That's it, yeah. And again, it's always coming back to consistency. I don't want to go into the refs this week because I don't think they did a whole lot wrong, but in a game that at the time was 1-0, it could have huge repercussions. If Hearts come back and win that, and they should have been down to 10 men, that's where the consistency is then really coming into questioning, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what really bothered me about the Mulligan one when I watched it was it didn't feel like it was completely reckless. It looked like he went for the ball, It was ill-timed. They got the ball away. He's taking the man out. You're expecting it to be a yellow card. Everyone's reaction. You just see one of the photographers in the background even holding his arms aloft as if to say, what's going on? Then in this case, I think it was the opposite. Everyone was expecting the red card and then amazed that it was the yellow. And like I say, I don't think it's particularly the way he's caught him. I think it is more the speed. Because I don't want to accuse him of it being malicious. I mean, he's a young player after all. It probably was just a case that it was ill-timed for him as well. But yeah, no, for me, if it was a red card, I wouldn't have argued against it. And like as you say, all we ask is for consistency. But we're going to sound like a broken record. We say it all the time. And I'm just happy that you're right. It's not been a case that it's a major talking point that Hearts have managed to get back in the game as a result. I'm very thankful that we've managed to see the win out, and there's no controversy in that regard.
Absolutely, and I'm going to stay with you just a little bit longer, I promise. But we do have to speak about Luke McCowan because he's obviously had a lot of transfer talk around him with Hibs, and at times it seems like it might be close, and Dundee are rejecting bids. Is it a mark of the man then that he sort of? I mean, he had a stormer against Hearts. He's a completely mature performance. He steps up, he takes a great penalty. But even before that, the goal as well that I think he sets up for Tiffany, where Xander Clark makes the mistake. He gets it. Xander Clark's out of position. You could see a player striking it from there, to be honest, especially someone that's as capable as Luke McCowan. But he just takes that extra touch, he holds onto it, and then he's allowed to slip Tiffany in. And I thought the way to describe him really is it was just a complete mature performance from a top class player.
Yeah, vintage Luke McCowan. Absolutely vintage Luke McCowan. He does what it says in the tin. You know exactly what you're going to get with him. It's attacking initiative. He does a lot of defensive work. I often say he doesn't get credit for, but he's just so influential in the way that we move. And yet in this case, it's actually quite funny because I've already mentioned that mistake from Xander Clark last season. If you were to watch that back, McCowan's chipped him from 30 yards and he scored, so you can't argue against it. But when you look at the opportunity at face value, it's like he probably should have slipped in Scott Tiffany at that point. Whereas this one, it's like Xander Clark's way off his line. That's probably one where he should be shooting, and instead he slipped in Scott Tiffany, and it's worked both ways. So I think it's quite a funny comparison to look at it that way, that he can make the wrong decision and still score. But no, listen, yeah, he's a top quality player. He's probably, for me, he's the best player we've had since Charlie Adam. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he's played with Charlie Adam and then been a complete revelation since getting moved into centre midfield. Because initially, Luke McCowan, for his first 2 seasons at Dundee, was occupied as a winger, a right winger predominantly. Yeah, he's just been absolutely outstanding. I get the feeling he won't leave this window. I think we're going to keep him and he'll leave for free. And I've already kind of established I think that's worth the gamble when you know what a player like that can set you heights in regards to the league. If we can get the top 6 again, potentially Europe, then he'd be worth his own weight in gold. So, listen, good players always have other teams sniffing about him, but I honestly don't mind losing him on a free if he's going to play like that week in, week out, which he's got the ability to do so.
Wow, top praise then, and final question, I promise. On Luke McCowan, you said there you're expecting to lose him on a free then at the end of the season. Do you think it works well for both parties? Obviously, you're saying if he gets you top 6, then it's worth it for you in the money that you would maybe get right now. But for Luke McCowan, do you think he can? And listen, no disrespect to Hibs, but do you think he can get a bigger move than Hibs if he's going on a free transfer? And English clubs are starting to sniff around a lot more in the league, and not just English clubs. You've seen the Italian clubs come in now. We're a league that is being watched a lot more these days, and Luke McCowan maybe has the attributes that could go and flourish in a foreign league. Do you think that he can go on and achieve bigger things? He's obviously 26 now, so his next move is going to be a very important one.
Yeah, absolutely. He can definitely play at a much higher level than the Scottish Premiership in my eyes. Celtic are monitoring him. That doesn't surprise me. I would feel if I were in charge of Celtic, he'd be one of the top names on my list as well. He's, in regards to Hibs, I'd be very surprised if he went to Hibs. I would describe it as a coup. So again, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Hibs. I think he would be a marvellous signing, but I just don't see them being able to to meet our valuation for him to bring him in. There's rumours that they're offering a cash fee with Dylan Levitt, but I don't think that inspires confidence with anyone of dark blue persuasion. So no, I'd be very surprised. I'd be shocked if he went to Hibs. I just don't see it happening. And yeah, he can definitely play at a much higher level in the Scottish Premiership, and I have no doubt he's got interest elsewhere. I believe there's teams down south. There's teams. Not that I'm saying it's a higher level than the Scottish Premiership, but I know he's got interest in the MLS as well, which, albeit, like I say, I don't think, in my view, it's not as good as the Premiership quality wise. But if you're getting paid decent money to play football in, Florida, anywhere in the Eastern Seaboard, California, then it's a no-brainer. But no, he's got the world at his feet. I kind of feel at the moment. For me, if I were him, I'd probably be licking my lips at the prospect of being able to play down south. I think that will probably be where the most interest will lie.
Fair enough. Absolutely superb there, Andy. I'm going to bring you in as well because you seem to be my lackey this weekend of picking up all the extra games at times. Were you obviously? I think everyone was surprised at the result, but were you maybe surprised in terms of Hearts' performance? Did Dundee maybe not just allow them to get into the game? I mean, there's been so much, like Ethan said, so much positivity around Hearts in the last couple of seasons, but certainly this season it's really ramped up with their transfers and new contracts for the management team. And obviously, okay, they have Rangers in the first game. They've now had Dundee. It's a slippery slope, isn't it? But you need to get that first 3 points on the board pretty sharpish.
They looked good against us last week, but maybe in hindsight, that's not the compliment that everybody thought it might be. Especially their right back Taylor. He seemed a bit on the ropey side against Hearts, when against us he looked like the next coming of Cafu. But it feels like Hearts are making changes for the sake of it. They had a good performance last week and then he goes and changes the team again needlessly. Danda is, as Ethan was saying earlier, he's a quality player. I'd have really liked Rangers to try and go for him and then just to drop him. It seems crazy to me. It's almost like Stephen Naismith is thinking he's smarter than he is. He's, rather than just keep the team the way it was, they performed well last week, why not just let them go out and do it again? Dundee played brilliant. Nothing to take away from Dundee. They played really well, and it could have been more. They kept Hearts quiet, and don't really know what more you can say other than Shankland was anonymous, apart from maybe one shot. And if Hearts are going to do anything, they really need Shankland to be focal point of their team, creating chances, scoring goals. And when he's not, while they've got other players that are decent, they're going to struggle. And I think Dundee played them really, really well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a perfect segue because from a man who didn't let his team remain the same and just go out and do it to a man that did in Brendan Rodgers' pool. I know this is a game you watched. It finished Hibs 0, Celtic 2. I mean, what can we say about this game? Hibs sort of looked like they were going to start in terms of attacking Celtic and actually going after them. And, I thought maybe we're seeing a confidence that Hibs haven't really portrayed so far this season. But maybe Celtic were letting them have that confidence a little bit because it seemed whenever they felt like it, they just cut Hibs open at will.
It was utterly dominant performance from Celtic. But I mean, when Kuhn, he's in the 6-yard box alone, just under 5 minutes to score that goal. The Hibs defence is posted missing, and I don't think they came back for the whole game, really, to be honest. And Celtic fans will be wondering why they didn't get more, particularly Kyogo. He missed a good few chances. They'll be wondering why they didn't get more goals in that game.
Yeah, and Paul, do you think also? I mean, I won't have you talk too much on it because I know I'm gonna be relying on you a lot for Kilmarnock. But just on that first goal, then 3 minutes in, it actually comes from a clearance from Celtic. Obviously the ball's in the Celtic area. It's cleared out to Kuhn, who then sort of hits that ball over the top for Kyogo to chase. I'm not really sure what Ekpiteta's doing there. He sort of backs off. Liam Miller then decides to just leave James Forrest to go and not challenge Kyogo. Kyogo gets the shot away. I'm not sure how good of a save it is. I'd have to see it back because I thought maybe the keeper could have not pushed that out to the side. But for James Forrest, who's someone that, was not used in the Euros for Scotland, but since coming back into the Celtic team, it's someone that Rodgers, he's done it the first time around, he's done it this time around, he's really relied on him, and he showed that he's still got that speed of thought because he's the first one in the box to follow it up, and not just follow it up, but he's got the wherewithal to actually look across the box, square that ball at speed as well, because he's not risking any Hibs players getting back on it, and Kuhn can't miss it, can he, really? And a lot of that comes from just James Forrest's speed of thought.
You're right. I was the same with the keeper. I thought maybe he could have pushed it round the post and out for a corner, but I don't know why he hasn't done that. But Forrest was right on it, and there's a perfect ball, and he was like yards out, so couldn't miss it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and from there it seemed that it could at any point just get even worse and worse for them. Hibs' tactic here, Andy, seemed to be that they were going to mark Callum McGregor out of the game. I think it seemed to be David Gray's sort of train of thought. The only problem with that is it allows all their other good players to come into the game and do, Callum McGregor is obviously the man who makes Celtic tick, but when you take him out, if you're focusing so much on that, you allow everyone else to have so much more space. That said, in the 19th minute, they, for some reason, forget that they're marking Callum McGregor, and he's got the sort of freedom of Easter Road. But what a finish it is as well. He cut. I know as a Rangers fan, you're probably not wanting to praise it, but he cuts right across that ball, and I think they summed up on Sky Sports. It's sort of no keeper in the world is saving it.
It was like.
Go on, Paul. Sorry, go on, Paul.
It was like a thunderous strike, but there was like 3 Hibs defenders round about him, and none of them try and challenge him, to be fair. And he gets plenty of time to do that. So, but it was a great strike.
Absolutely, and Andy, I'll come to you this time. Obviously, like Paul said there, the closing down maybe left much to be desired. I know, as a Rangers fan, you obviously complain in terms of having to go up against those teams that camp the box a little bit. Hibs coming out much more today than maybe usually against the Old Firm. But what were your sort of thoughts on that goal there? Because as good as the strike it is, you'd be disappointed in Rangers, I think, with the defending if it was on their foot.
It seemed like Hibs were oblivious that they were playing against the best attacking team in the league today. They just seemed to think, who needs to defend against this team, when they're literally playing against the most threatening team in the league by far. The speed that they attack at, the space they create for themselves. As we were talking in the chat earlier, we're saying that, is it Hibs just being too attacking and being too open, or is it the fact that Celtic are just too fast in their movements that they can just create this space? Probably a bit of both, that Hibs were really naive in the fact that the O'Reilly, Hatate and McGregor, they're a quality midfield, and they're going to find space. Even if a team parks their team on the edge of the box, they still find space. Doesn't matter if you attack them or not. But the strike was unreal. Doubt 2 keepers would have saved it.
Yeah, and Jenna, in terms of Celtic then and their ambitions this season, obviously doing better in Europe, I think is going to be massive for them. But in terms of what they're doing in the league, Kyogo probably wasn't at his best today. Is that a scary thought that Celtic are dominating these games and Kyogo's sort of yet to get up to full speed?
It is, because I didn't expect that from Kyogo, to be honest. I missed the game today, so I'm kind of limited to what I can really comment on properly about it. But hearing that Kyogo has been able to get into things at all, I'm actually quite surprised to hear that. I thought he was one of the main people that Celtic relied on. He was always consistent with his goal scoring abilities. To be fair, it's still early days. Give it a week or two and I'm sure he should be fine. but he is very important for Celtic, and if he doesn't get shooting boots on again soon, it's a bit worrying if he hasn't been able to do what he normally do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the game sort of did die from there a little bit, Ethan. I mean, Hibs certainly come back in the second half, but in terms of Hibs and David Gray, I mean, you're on a hide into nothing in a way, but historically they do very well against Celtic. They do very well against the Brendan Rodgers Celtic at Easter Road. It's a demon that Brendan Rodgers has seemingly banished, but in the last couple of games. How sort of ominous do you think it is for the rest of the league then, for, I guess, from a Celtic point of view, and how well they've started, but after that, how do you think sort of David, or what David Gray's thinking at this point in time as the inexperienced Hibs manager?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting thing to consider. I think on one hand, majority of teams go into games against Celtic and Rangers with a very negative mindset. I think they dread the games rather than get eager to test themselves against the better teams of the division, especially knowing that like it's not just the 1 or 2 games, it's more 3 or 4. In David Gray's case, the worry I've got for Hibs is I mentioned earlier about how important it can be to get the monkey off the back, to get that first win in the season. That's 2 defeats in a row. They've got Celtic again in the cup. You lose that, 3 defeats in a row. Suddenly that game with Dundee going to Easter Road is massive, because if you lose that, then you're under serious pressure. So I think in his head, he's got to be thinking right now where it's went wrong and how they can showcase a better display the following week. That's got to be pivotal, because if they play Celtic again and it's a worse display, or it's a worse margin in terms of the scoreline, the message it sends to the fans is that they're not seeing progression. Although it's very early days, there's you maybe sense that there's very early signs of decline. Because a player, when you get beat, the first thing you want to do is you want to play immediately and try to make amends. So they need to play with heart in the sleeve. They need to really show a display to give some sort of form of encouragement for the Hibs fans, to show like, okay, look, this might be a rocky start, but it's not from a fault of trying. Like, there is the minerals there to get going. So I think that will be playing in his head right now, is how they can improve that display against Celtic. If they show a better display, and let's say they only get beat 1-0, I reckon there could be Hibs fans. I have no idea. I can't speak for the majority of Hibs fans or anything, but I would like to think that a fair lot of them will look at that and say, well, you know what, it's a tough ask, Celtic, two games back to back, but at least they've shown a sign of progress in the midst of things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it's a really good point you make as well, because it's Celtic away next, isn't it, in the League Cup, and then it's an in-form Dundee, and then maybe an out-of-form Kilmarnock, but it is away from home. Then you've got St Johnstone who are looking good today, and then you've got Rangers. It quickly builds up, and it can be a like I said before, it could be a really slippery slope, especially as a new manager.
Yeah, it's momentum's everything in football. One defeat can quickly turn into 2, the same way that one victory can send you on a great run of form. And I think normally that's kind of why I make a really big deal when it comes to. I know this isn't particularly relevant, this talking point, but with refereeing decisions, when they can influence a game, that one defeat can set you on, as you say, like a slippery slope. But in this case, it's all fair and clean. And it's simply a case that Hibs are the masters of their own destiny. And there's a saying, fortune favours the brave. They've got to be a lot braver against Celtic this time round, and showed that they can. Again, I won't put the expectation to take the game to Celtic, but certainly just show improvement at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on, Paul, your time to shine. Unlike Kilmarnock did, unfortunately, Kilmarnock 0, St Johnstone 3 in the end. Paul, I mean, we'll go into it, but sum it up for us. What sort of went wrong, and really, I mean, Kilmarnock just haven't started this season, it feels.
I don't know what's happened, to be honest. I'd never be a manager, although we speak about managers all the time on here. I could never do that job. But I don't know how the level of performance has dropped so badly from last season until now. I mean, obviously you've got the European games to contend with, but I mean, the same as Hearts, our lineup's changing every week. All different players. I don't know if maybe data or something plays into this. I was going to ask you guys what you thought on that, but why you just don't play the same team that does well for you every week? I just don't understand it. And like so, young Bobby Wales, he came on in the European game, scored the equaliser during the week. I mean, he doesn't come on today until 5 minutes before the end. So you just wonder, a young player full of confidence, why does he not even start that game, But I mean, we didn't start well at all today. The defence was like, they weren't concentrated at all and just leaving the ball to each other and letting Sidibé nip in and score the first. And then also with the second one as well, to cross into the box, Sidibé get plenty of time to control it and slot it away. Again, no one quick enough to him. And that was just, obviously, we'll get our centre half, Joe Wright, sent off as well, which 2 crazy yellow cards, really. His first one pulling the guy back, and the second one, he just dived right in on a yellow already. So you can't really legislate for that. And as soon as he goes, everything else, the 3 points probably along with it. But we did start playing like maybe 15 minutes into the second half and playing the ball on the ground, what we're good at. But then it was far too late. And we even had time to give away a penalty before the end as well. So
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Sidibé, then someone that you'd have to argue St Johnstone have done very well to keep, because there was obviously Swansea was sniffing around him. I think they've pretty much lowballed St Johnstone and it's got kicked out because of that. But he seemed to be the star man today. He caused Kilmarnock all sorts of problems all over the pitch. Like say, Joe Wright couldn't really handle him. I think his first card comes against him. He scores 2 goals. He was just sort of a pain all afternoon. Is that a worry for you then, as someone that's sort of a team that plays that back 3 that one guy can cause so much issues?
they've also got quite a good partnership as well up there, and it's just constant movement. He's got pace, and he clearly knows where the goal is. I mean, it's a great find from Craig Levein, picking him from Warrington, English non-league, where I think he gets 16 goals in 8 months or something down there. So, bringing him up here, and he's just going to keep going with the goals by the looks of it. So he's going to cause a lot of problems for teams.
Yes, absolutely. And like we said to Jenna, you've obviously got Motherwell coming up next in the cup, and then sorry, no, it's not next. Is it? It's Tromsø next, isn't it? And then it's Motherwell at the weekend. How are you feeling going away to Tromsø? Which, by the way, if no one has been there, it is a stunning city. Absolutely ridiculous view you can get at Tromsø. But what's your sort of thoughts going in there? Because is it a case of it can't get any worse right now, or have you got any sort of confidence? Because it's 2-2. The ties. I know you're playing bad, but the ties in the balance, right? You've seen it with Rangers when during their European runs, they've managed to turn it on in Europe when it's not happening in the league. Are you going in there with hope, or are you sort of going in there a bit downhearted after this?
Well, we're anticipating the same as the Motherwell game. Hopefully, them pulling a performance out of nowhere. But I think like when we played Bruges, the last European game, we just went there and sat off them and just let them play their game. But we need to go to Tromsø on the front foot and play with our wingers and play the ball on the ground like what we're good at, and just take the game to them, and then hopefully we'll get something from that. And yes. Motherwell's playing quite well, so that's going to be a difficult game coming up as well.
Yep, absolutely. It is going to be a difficult tie, but we obviously want all the Scottish Cups through, so it'd be if you can play out. I think Derek McInnes did sum up earlier when he was saying about how the reason you're in Europe is because of how well you defended, and right now that's not happening. Do you think that is key for Kilmarnock getting back on the right track? Is getting back to that sort of defensive stronghold that you have?
Definitely the defence. I mean, I know that last week we were defenders out injured, And the loan signing from Sunderland, Spain, I think it is. He came in for his first game at Celtic Park, which is quite quite a daunting first game for you. So yeah, if we've got all our defenders, our best defenders fit, I think, and we're as concentrated as we were last season, I think that will be good for us, and we can play in the front foot and hopefully not concede any. We've got a good chance.
Yeah, and just bringing Andy in then here, we obviously we've got one more game to go, which we'll touch on in a sec. In terms of Kilmarnock's European hopes, then what do you think? Because like we said, they have not started the season too well. Defensively, all over the shop at the moment, but those European nights, we've seen it plenty of times in the past for Scottish teams. There's something different in there about Europe, and I think they certainly, although it wasn't the greatest performance in the first leg, they certainly showed enough that they can hurt Tromsø.
Well, I've been really surprised in Kilmarnock. I had high hopes for them going into this season. Obviously, they've not started well, so they might turn it around quick enough. But as Paul said, they built from being a defensive unit, strong defensively, and already they're conceding goals at an alarming rate. But I think going away in Europe, if they can get the same support that they got going over to Bruges, if that can go over to Tromsø with them, anything could happen. It's going to be a tough ask, but you never know. Hoping that they manage it. It'd be great to see everybody get through to the next round, getting into the group stages.
Yes, absolutely. And from one Scottish team that have got a European tie coming up to another one, we have got Aberdeen versus St Mirren. This one finished Aberdeen 3, St Mirren 1, so the Jimmy Thielen regime is certainly looking good at the moment. Andy, I know you watched this one live. What were your sort of takeaways from this game? I know there was some certainly dodgy goalkeeping, because I watched this one as well. Both goalkeepers had their moments in this one, but how sort of impressed have you been with Aberdeen so far?
Yeah. As soon as they announced Thielen, I thought that Aberdeen might do something this season, especially he's backed it up with the signings that they've made. Pittodrie's a hard place to go to at the best of times for us anyway. And now with the players that they've brought in, I think we might struggle up there even more. I expect them to be playing some really good football. Today, I don't think they were at their best today. It was a really even game. But they managed to get over the line. I know 3-1 maybe doesn't sound the closest. But as you said, the keepers, I think they were feeling like they needed to be the main event today rather than the whole team together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in terms of St Mirren then, and I'll bring this one to you, Jenna, obviously going to be a tough place to come because, listen, Aberdeen are a team that, again, and like Hearts, I think before their bad results, they're certainly full of positivity. The foreign manager comes in. It's very exotic, isn't it? He's an attacking manager, so it's very easy to get behind. The signings have been very good, and by all means, it seems like they've got another one on the way in the young Finnish winger. In terms of, if we flip that to St Mirren, how do you think their mindset is going into a very, very difficult game in Norway, like Kilmarnock going out there, but Brann are second in the league. They finished runners-up last season. That's a very, very good team. And I think for the most part, St Mirren were played off the park for the majority of the European tie. They did get the late equaliser, so a puncher's chance. But how do you think their mindset is going out there on the back of a sort of difficult afternoon at Pataudry?
I think it will probably be a bit shaky, to be honest. I mean, if they had gotten a result against Aberdeen, they could have used that to kind of boost their spirits a bit. As one of those things, Europe, it can bring out the nerves in you, regardless if you're going in on a nothing each aggregate. If it's a 6-0, it doesn't matter. Like, you will be nervous going to that game. That's a given. If they just, even if it was like 3-2 even, with like a last minute equaliser in like the 88th minute or something like that, or one or even I should say, sorry, but just even something like that, you'd be able to get more positive about going, we just missed out in the last minute. We were in the game for longer. I've got all the respect in the world for Stephen Robinson. The amazing transformation he's done at St Mirren is brilliant. I will never not sing his praises, but I really do hope this works out well for him. I've got a soft spot, not for Sammon, but just for Stephen Robinson still, just because of the great success he had for us. You can see a lot of similarities between how we were ran when he was with us, as well as St Mirren. Again, European football being a big part of that as well. I really do hope things work out well for him, because, to be honest, I think he just deserves, as a manager, great guy, and deserves a little bit of success and a bit of good luck in his stride.
Yes, absolutely. And Ethan, sort of same question to you then. I mean, Bran is going to be, such a difficult time. They're I think they showed from the first leg they're a very, very good footballing side. But St Mirren themselves, Gorgic has been. I mean, I've said this before. He feels like he's been a revelation since going to St Mirren, and the way he plays for them. Oli Sanya's obviously been. He started the season very well. He gets a goal today, pretty much out of absolutely nothing. Or it's defensive calamity from Aberdeen, but Oli Sanya's got to be there, and St Mirren fans are singing his praises. Where are you sort of on their chances? Do you think they've got any hopes going into that Thursday one? Or I mean, Bran on the other hand could be thinking that they should have this tie killed off, and they're going back 1-1.
Well, football's full of upsets. I actually think they do have a half decent chance, and I'll give you my reasoning right here. First and foremost, Stephen Robinson, St Mirren side, or any Stephen Robinson side, they're always defensively astute. So I think if they play to their strengths, don't try and play them at their own game. Just play to your own strengths. Look to frustrate them and carry out as long as you can with a clean sheet. And as you know, in football, anything can happen. You got to remember as well, you know about Kilmarnock's chances based on that the fantastic away support they're going to be having. These St Mirren fans haven't had a proper European away day, because I think they only had 80 fans at the last leg. So for the majority of these fans, they've not. The majority of them won't have even experienced it. The rest will have waited over 40 years for this. So they'll be going there, I think, full party mode and just making the most out of the occasion as possible. And that kind of spirit from the crowd, I think, will be massive in carrying them forward. So if the crowd is on point, if they can keep their wits about them, that defensive discipline, as we know they can play, then yeah, I see no reason why they can't get a result. I refuse to write them off, and they've got some players, of course, with real quality as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mark O'Hara, and that goal he scored in the last round, that the volley is absolutely sublime. They've got players that can have those special wee moments like that, and I think Sanya seems to be that kind of guy right now, popping up with the goals, last minute goals, etc. And they're a hard working, robust side, St Mirren. So yeah, why not? Your mic's on mute.
Almost got through the entire pod, and then we come back and we do it there. Look at that. I was going to say, just before we sign off for the night, I'm going to come back to Andy just to give the sort of final thoughts on Aberdeen, because I feel like a player that obviously Miovski came on at the very end. Seems like he was saying his goodbyes with the way that went. But beyond Miovski, Andy, I think a player that certainly needs to be sung out at the moment, because he's, for me, been one of the standouts for Aberdeen, is Jamie McGrath, who everything seems to go through right now for them. And he was obviously very good at Hibs, but he's gone from strength to strength, and a player that Aberdeen have really decided to build the team around, it feels.
Well, just on Miovski, it definitely looked like it was a goodbye from him today, with a wee tear in his eye as he walked up towards the end behind the goals. But Jamie McGrath, the finish that he took today was really, really nice goal. Though a bit of luck that went to him after the miss kick that was meant to be a shot fell right to his feet. But I think Aberdeen are doing well to build around him, and especially with the signings coming in, they're only going to improve, and these players are only going to get better with better players around them as well, which I'm not too happy about, to be fair, because the way we are playing, it's making things a lot harder for us.
Yes, no, absolutely. Can't really argue there. I said Hibs, didn't I? By the way, I don't know. It was St Mirren, of course, Jamie McGrath, and then on loan to Dundee United. But we will leave it there. It's been a fantastic look back at all the games. We've had Dundee delight. We've had the champion Celtic showing their class again. And we've got plenty more to come. Rangers versus Dynamo Kiev on Tuesday at Hampden Park. And then we've got the two games in Norway, St Mirren away at Brann and Kilmarnock away at Tromsø, hoping for a triple delight where all 3 Scottish teams move forward and the coefficient approves. And we've got plenty more to talk about. Thank you to Andy, Paul, Jenna, and Ethan for joining me and discussing everything tonight. And we will catch you all very, very soon.